Hello and welcome back to Mariners Rundown. I am your host, Jake from Race the Trident. Thank you for stopping by again. I appreciate it. Today, we are going to have a fun episode that's going to be totally full of positivity and great talk about the Mariners. Today, I have Nathan Bishop joining us. He is formerly of Lookout Landing and Dome and Bedlam, currently writes on a newsletter on Substack called The Light Bat. Nathan, how are you doing today?
Jake, I'm really good, man. It's always a joy to be able to speak to a member of the credentialed baseball media.
Right,
So I
right.
appreciate you having me out, man. It's the weather is we were talking off air. The weather's cooled off a little bit and staring a little Father's Day weekend in the face. So things are looking up.
Yep, yeah. It's just in time for Father's Day, which, both of us will be celebrating on Sunday, which I'm fine with it not being hot. We talked about it a little bit. I have no tolerance for the heat, which is funny because I the first 7 years of my life I grew up in California, so at that time I was somewhat used to it. But now that I would say I really grew up in the Pacific Northwest, that heat tolerance
Yes.
is gone. So if it's like above 80 degrees, I'm
hmm
not comfortable and it's just not fun. So how are
Yeah,
you
yeah,
with the
I'm
heat?
with you. Yeah, I went to college in California and I feel like I kind of learned how to deal with it. My wife is from Glendale down in Arizona,
Hmm.
part of the Maricopa Valley. So she's very used to the heat. But since I've returned to the Northwest in 2005, I have definitely just lost all my heat tolerance. I'm just a pasty white boy who just wants it to be between 63 and 66 degrees at all times with
Yep.
sun and a light breeze. And that's all I'm asking. That's really all I'm asking for.
Yep.
Have it be like that all year round. I don't think it's that much to ask.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate the summers are getting hotter and hotter. I remember,
Yeah.
growing up here in August when we would have our local fair. I remember it would be in the 80s, sometimes it touched the 90s, and now you're lucky if it's not mid to upper 90s, maybe even 100,
hmm
walking around, on fairgrounds with fried food everywhere, and it's just an uncomfortable experience in general. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, not fun, not fun. But yeah, the weather, I guess, in the hypothetical or metaphorical sense around the Mariners is also not very good right now. Uh,
Speaking of climate change.
exactly. So the Mariners are currently tied for second in the division with,
hmm
you would guess it, right? The Los Angeles Angels. They're tied with the Angels right now in the standings. They're currently 33 and 34 on the season. They are 4.5 games back of the mighty Houston Astros. Ben Verlander is going to love the fact I mentioned that.
Mm.
So, yeah, I guess just starting out before we get into the more pointed things, what's your general thoughts on the club right now, Nathan?
Well, I think a great way to kind of summarize the way that you and I come at the team is you said tied for second, and I would say tied for third. So
Yeah.
so if we're gonna talk glass half full, glass half empty, there's a good delineator right there. But as far as the team, obviously not good right now. They've gone 5-14 in the last 3 weeks, 11-20 since May 8th. I think the thing that's been really disappointing about this run of play is that it hasn't felt particularly unlucky. It hasn't felt like this is a group that's drastically underplaying its overall talent level. I think that some of the guys on the roster have, in some like Cal Raleigh, we have to mention there is definitely exceeding what any reasonable person would have expected him to do. Even though you can say you loved Cal Raleigh before this season started, you could even say you thought he was the best catcher in baseball before this season started, and you still would have never expected to be sitting here on June 13th with him leading all of baseball in home runs. That's just not something that we would realistically expect. So it's disappointing that they get that kind of performance. They've gotten a tremendous bounce back from JP Crawford. He's among the best shortstops in the American League this year. You're getting I understand the criticisms and frustrations with Julio Rodriguez's offense, particularly his inconsistent power output. He's still one of the best center fielders in all of baseball, arguably the best in the American League this year. You've gotten a fantastic performance from Brian Wu, Andres Munoz. There are guys on this roster that have been carrying the freight. And what makes it disappointing is that it's everybody else who's just been a disaster, man. Like it's
Mhm.
just up and down the line. We've talked about trying to avoid black holes on the roster. There's more black hole here than there isn't. That's the scary thing to me. We can't sit here and look at this run 11-20 in the last 31 and be like, once Miles Mastrobuoni and Rowdy Tellez get going, this team's really going to turn it around. Like there's just not a lot to pin your hopes on. So that, to me, that's the scary thing. They need this rotation to get healthy. Obviously, that's been the backbone of the team forever. Saw a really, really encouraging start from George Kirby last week against the Angels. Brian Wu, I thought was really solid. He just, it's the classic Jeff Fassero. He had one bad inning. He just had one bad inning in that Arizona game, and it was enough to get him. Poorly timed home run to Eugenio Suarez, as funny as that was. So yeah, they need Logan Gilbert back really badly. They need George Kirby to continue to be who he was. And then hopefully you continue to cobble together a good back end with Emerson Hancock and Logan Evans. But I I'm not as emotionally down about this team as I've been in the past because I've kind of making my peace with who they are and what it is they're trying to achieve more or less. But as far as just talent on the field, Jake, I think that this is right now as bad of a group of talent as they put out there since 2021, probably. It's just not a very deep or complete roster, in my opinion.
Well, Dipoto said it was a complete roster, so I think you're maybe
Yeah,
wrong there.
he does say a lot of things, doesn't he?
Yeah,
He sure
yeah,
does. And it's amazing. I mean, we've talked about it to death. It's amazing he made that comment right before everything went to
of
hell.
course he
Like
did.
popped out on an off day, just popped out of his cave to make that most complete roster we've ever had, duck back in. And then I think they were 22 and 14 when he said that. And
Yep.
now we're talking they're 33 and 34. The man just does not miss.
Yeah, if there's nothing that the Mariners aren't, it's just poetic. Every single game, every single moment there is a deeper meaning for everything, and it all ties back to something. Yeah, and it's hard because I think I was really optimistic at the start, just because when they kind of got a little bit of their lead over not only the division but over 500, and they were winning the 9 series in a row and whatever, I felt a bit better about it than I did last year, because they did a similar thing last year, right? They got the 10-game lead and all that. However, last year I think we were all very consciously aware that they were getting lucky a lot, and they were getting those
Mm-hmm.
big hits, they were getting those walk-offs, and it was kind of one of those things where you kind of just could tell the shoe was going to drop at some point. The offense was not good from the start, and we knew that, but they were winning games, like, whatever.
Yep.
I felt a little bit different this year, because I felt like the years they were the wins they were having felt like actual, like, complete wins for the most part. Especially
Mm-hmm.
their offense was looking a lot better to start the year, and so I was like, maybe this is real. And then of course, they have to find a way to crater back down to the cellar of all the offensive stats and everything. It's been tough to watch. So with this recent skid, the conversation has now rightfully moved, not only from the team performance, but now back to the front office and ownership again. We kind of forgot about it when they won 9 games or 9 series in a row, which,
Sure.
is what it is. But now that they're starting to just feels like find ways to lose games every day, and they've been tough watches for a good 2 weeks straight, at least, if not more. And you've even written about the front office and ownership on the light bat. So I'm curious, when do you think we'll see the end of the Dipoto era in Seattle? Do you think it'll be in the middle of the season now? Do you think it'll be at the end? I think it's hard, because for me, and Ty and Colby on Locked On, when we were talking, or not when we were talking, but they mentioned on their podcast, I think at the end of last year, they
Mm-hmm.
said the problem is, although Dipoto has not managed to get a good enough position, or a major league team, he's been good on the draft and development side, whatever. But on the major league team scale, the problem is that he's like, not that he's good, but he's like the perfect GM or Pobo for the ownership, because he's managed to make somewhat contending teams in the budget that he has. Once again, not like it, it's not a I guess, saying that he is a good Pobo. It's more of, for the ownership group and what they are probably looking for, he fits the shoe, like the shoe fits with him.
Mm-hmm.
So with that said, going back to the question, I guess, like, when do you think the end will happen? Do you think it's going to be this season? Do you think we're probably going to have another couple seasons at least of, and if they keep doing what they're doing now, like, it's going to be done, or what?
Well, if I had to make a prediction, and if that's all we're just looking for is just something for me to say, here's what I would say I think is going to happen if I could guess. I don't think that Jerry is going to leave at the end of this year unless it's his choice to do it, unless he's just kind of sick of the whole deal out here and he just decides, I've been out here for a decade. I'm never going to do anything more and I've had enough. I do think the seat is getting warmer though. And if you did tell me that at the end of this year, he was let go by ownership, I wouldn't necessarily be shocked. I would be shocked if they cut ties with him mid-season, unless it just goes, unless another scandal like the Lorena Martin thing happens, or he's, another 54% press conference or something, which with Jerry, I mean, it absolutely could happen. The man has learned nothing about how to comport himself in public over 10 years. But if he just keeps his mouth shut, unless the team loses, 90 plus games and the vibes are just absolutely wretched, or Dan Wilson walks away and says these guys are a bunch of jokers and I hate them and all this other stuff, I think he's going to stick around. And I think it's the profit stuff that you're talking about. I think that this is an ownership group. And I think we need to emphasize too, when we talk about ownership, there are so many of these guys, and every single one of them is super rich and super opinionated, and they probably are not even close to aligned with what they even think the Mariners should be. So we're talking about, like, I've heard on good authority that John Stanton really wants to win baseball games. And I have no reason to disbelieve that. But I also believe that John Stanton loves money. And I believe that the people that are attached to his ownership group might love money a little bit more than winning in the end of the day. And maybe he's just having a hard time wrangling all these cats, these rich cats around and trying to get them aligned with that. All that to say, I think we need to think about what we're thinking about when we talk about ownership. We're not just screaming at John Stanton, who's the figurehead and the guy that has to take all of this. There's the dozens upon dozens of these people. And that just sounds like an awful experience trying to get a group like that to align around a cohesive vision, especially if it's not something as universally something you can rally behind as winning, because that's the thing that should be the cure-all. That's why we would hope all these guys would be in this, would be to win. But to your point, Dipoto serves a lot of those non-winning interests. He gets fans into the stadium. I still think there's a very good chance, unless this upcoming stretch, which we can talk about more between now and the break, just absolutely crushes them. I think there's a great chance they're going to be within 2 to 4 games of a playoff spot come early mid-September, and that's going to fill up the stadium and everyone's going to get excited. And that feels cynical, and maybe it is, but also I think it's just kind of an accurate observation of history. This is the way that we've seen things happen here. So I think you have to marriage that. He's really great at keeping fan interest relatively high by not letting the organization ever tank out. The only time they ever tanked was 2019, and they were all kind of horrified by it and never wanted to have it again. And to their credit, it's never happened again. We're on 4 straight winning seasons right now. I think 2 of them 90 wins. Like, by any measure on the field, this is one of the most successful stretches in Mariners history, which is weird that it feels so dissatisfying, but that's what it is. I think you combine that with his actual real, and as a big critic of Jerry for a long time, the man has strengths. He's done real good things here in Seattle. He's a phenomenal. The group he's built is phenomenal at drafting. They're absolutely wunderkinds at pitching. They develop arms unlike almost any organization in the sport. You have to weigh those things in when you're making the decision as to whether or not you're going to part ways with this guy. And I think, just not going a little bit beyond your question, what I want them to do, if they're going to move on from Jerry, like, selfishly, I'm ready to be done with Jerry. That's not going to surprise anybody. If anybody listening to your show knows who I am and has ever read or listened to me talk, they know that I personally would enjoy the Mariners more if Jerry Dipoto's not their executive anymore. I'm just sick of the guy. He's not for me. That's fine. But if they're going to part ways with him, I don't want that to be the motivation. I want them to have an actual plan for how they're going to find someone better than Jerry, because it's clear they can find someone worse. The 2 guys before him were worse. Bill Bavasi's maybe one of the worst sports executives in major American sports this century. Like, if you're going to get rid of Jerry, have an idea of why are you getting rid of him, and who are you going to replace him with that's going to make him better. So that's a kind of a long-winded answer, but it's complicated, man. I think he's going to be here. I think that he's going to crush the draft again. I think that everyone's going to get excited about that farm, and he's got the idea of a great farm coalescing into a universally triumphant product is always 1 or 2 years away. That's a really tempting thing and a tempting idea for everyone to hold on to, especially the way that baseball's salary structure works. And the way that so much media is so oriented around prospects and farm rankings and value and club control and all these things, it really can just kind of earworm you into always thinking, hey, greatness is just around the corner. But for me personally, I think if you see 10 years now, it's like, well, we've been hearing that for 10 years. And I understand that the rebuild started in 2018, but we heard the same kind of thing in 2016 and 2017. The verbiage has never really changed, that we're always just a little bit, when the time is right, the money will get spent. When it's time for us to contend, we're holding back for when the timing is right, when the timing is right. And we're a decade in. It's clear that this is just what it's going to be. So
Yep.
I think he stays. I'll probably complain about it. We'll come on the show in a year, have a similar conversation.
Yep, fair enough. Yeah. Well, I'm curious, like during Depoto's tenure, though, when it's always kind of been around the corner for the prospects. I mean, have they ever had this strong of a farm system during that time? Because I'm a newer fan, and I've said that before, like only within the last few years. So, have they ever had 6, 7 top 100 guys at the same time?
I think the closest comparison you get is going to be the previous class with the George Kirby, Logan Gilbert,
Yeah.
Julio Rodriguez, Cal Raleigh, Jared Kelnick. Kelnick obviously being the big one that didn't work out there. Like that's the closest one. They had arguably a top 3, 5 farm back in 2020, 2021, and it graduated great. And
Yep.
and that's again another reason why if you're a pro Jerry guy, I get it, man. Like this rotation is a wonder. Cal Raleigh is the
Yep.
best catcher in baseball. Julio Rodriguez is an amazing player. I get it. And the big thing that's different now is one, the sheer raw number of top 100 guys. I don't particularly care about the number of top 100 prospects. If you want to get excited about that, that's great. Go for it. I think it's more for discussion and entertainment than it is any sort of real reflection of farm depth. But the one thing when you do talk, I think Eric over at Fangraphs wrote up the Mariners today. Their farm, their top 29 prospects. He just talked about how it's one of the best farms because of just the sheer number of bats that they have in that farm system now. It's like
Yeah.
you've got enough bullets in the chamber that you think, even if you think it's a lottery, which I kind of tend to think prospects are more of a lottery than
Of
anything.
course.
The more chips you got, man, the more tickets you got, the better chance you've got on hitting on one. I'd
Mhm.
love it if one or two of them were those true elite top 5, top 10 guys, the way that Julio and Kelnick were. It doesn't really seem like any of those guys at this point are trending that way. Although Celestin maybe could get there if I almost said McColt. I don't need to bring my brand on you to your podcast. If Emerson unlocks his average his hitting for average again, I think he could get up there. But they've just got so many guys. What kind of skill set do you like? I talked to Chris Crawford on my podcast on the light bat. And he's a big prospect guy, and he just went on and on and on. And it's like, man, there's a flavor for any preference. Do you want power? Do you want speed? Do you want
Mhm.
5 tool? Do you want average? Like they just got kind of it all down there. And now the big question is, can they translate it? They could do it with pitching.
Mhm.
The open question is, can they graduate hitters? And I have real questions about it, given the way that they identify hitting at the major league level, which is not very good.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's one thing to keep an eye on is just, when you were talking about the last class and most of those, two of those four guys are pitchers who have became, some of the best pitchers in the game when they're right. A lot of the top guys in the Mariners system right now are bats, which is nice, and I feel like bats can be less likely to succeed than pitchers because
Mm-hmm.
if you throw hard and you have good stuff, I mean, you could like who cares? Like it's gonna work in
Sure.
to some extent, whereas bats is a lot more finicky. But and I can't say a whole lot because I'm still trying to get more into the prospects as well in general. But just had the chance to see an Aqua Sox game about a month ago, and
Yeah.
I will say I saw a Laz Montez home run over the batter's eye, and yeah, the ball jumps off that dude's bat quite
And
a
and you
bit
get
for.
the dream. That's the
So
ultimate
I'm like,
dream.
okay, I see it. It feels very old school scouting, like oh the ball just jumps off his bat or whatever.
But it
But
feels so good to say,
it
doesn't
did,
it?
it did. What can I
You
say?
feel like such a ball knower too.
Yeah,
Ball just jumps off this kid's
yeah,
bat.
yeah. Oh, he's got a loud bat, like that type of
Uh-huh.
thing. So yeah, I get it a little bit there. So we'll talk about Cal Raleigh in a second. First, I want to remind listeners, please, if you're watching on YouTube, like the show. You can subscribe to the channel; it's free, and comment down below as well. And if you're on audio, Spotify and Apple, you can follow the show and leave a 5-star review as well. And of course, go check out Nathan's stuff, especially the Light Bat on Substack. That'll all be linked down below, not on the audio platforms because I can't do that on audio platforms, but on YouTube, it'll be there. Or check out his Twitter as well. But yeah, going into Cal Raleigh, Cal is currently still leading the home run or leading the league in home runs and is on pace to have one of, if not the best catcher seasons of all time by BWAR standards. I tweeted a little bit earlier that we're about 40% of the way through the season. He's at 3.3 BWAR. So as far as the live ball era goes, the number one is Mike Piazza at like I think an 8.9, 8.7 BWAR season.
Mm-hmm.
So he is on track to beat that right now to have the best catcher season, but in the live ball era.
Right.
There's one guy in like 1940 that had like 10.7. That's not going to happen. So
No.
we'll keep it the live ball era here. But in all of your years of watching Mariners baseball, where does this Cal Raleigh season rank for you as one of the best seasons by an individual player that you've been able to watch?
I mean, it's definitely to this point, as far as pure excellence, as we define excellence, the kinds of things that WAR is trying to measure, their whole contribution to winning baseball games. I think there's varying ways you can talk about excellence. Like we can talk about Ichiro's 2004, I think is as the most historically unique season in Mariners history. If not, it may not necessarily be the best, but a guy hitting, I think it was like 420 something for the entire second half of a Major League Baseball season is just completely absurd. Like,
Yeah.
and talk about things in the modern era you are never ever going to see again. But as far as Cal is concerned in this season, by that value, I don't think anybody who is under 35, and even if you grew up here and have been a Mariners fan since the day you were born, really has a way of measuring it, because you have to go back to the peak Alex Rodriguez and Ken Griffey Jr. years before you get there. That's the conversation that this start puts him in. It's in the 1996 Alex Rodriguez, 1998 Alex Rodriguez, 1997 Ken Griffey Jr., 1993, 1998, 1999 Ken Griffey Jr. It's that kind of thing. And the cool thing about it is he's doing, Junior and Alex did it as center fielders and shortstops. It's amazing that these huge offensive seasons that the Mariners have all come up the middle at these incredibly premium defensive positions as well. Because now you have Cal doing it. And the cool thing about the way that Cal's doing it is it's just like those guys. The guy's just hitting a crap load of dingers. It's awesome to watch. It's so, so fun when you have a guy that's like at the very top of the traditional stat leaderboard, the counting stat leaderboard, and you can just hop on every day, look at the home run totals, and you see Cal Raleigh and then Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani, and you're like, yeah, suck it, two of the best baseball players to ever live. Cal Raleigh's out dingering you, and it's just we haven't seen it in 25, 30 years. So I hope that no matter what, I wrote about this today, that I kind of alluded to, I didn't really write about it, but I kind of alluded to it today, that I really hope the Mariners spiraling downward at this point doesn't push Cal's season onto the periphery of our conversation. Because as long as he's keeping this up, I don't care how bad the Mariners get. I mean, we spent all of 2010 campaigning for Felix to get the Cy Young Award, even though that was the worst offense I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, we have to take, especially as Mariner fans, we have to take the good things that we have and make sure that we appreciate them. This team is not going to give you a bed of roses to lie down in. You're going to have to go find the good stuff. And Cal's should not be overlooked just because the team's playing poorly. I think right now, this is the best position season I've seen a Mariner have this century. It's easily the best catcher season that they've ever had. He's already cemented as the best catcher. You use BWAR, I use FWAR. The total there is 4.0. He's the second most valuable position player in baseball behind Aaron Judge, whose 475 BABIP or whatever it is not going to last. So keep an eye on that one. He's also running around in right field as opposed to catcher. So it's not going to take much drop off offensively for Aaron Judge to have Cal nipping right at his heels. The best live ball, well, I went integration. The best catcher season by FWAR since integration is 2012 Buster Posey at 9.8. which, yeah, I hear that number. I'm like, there's no way in hell. Cal's at 4.
Yep.
We're not much
Not
more
even
than
halfway through.
40% of the way through the season.
Yeah.
So, like, on pace is like this funny joke we make the first 2 or 3 weeks of the baseball season. We're not 2 or 3 weeks in. We're 2.5 months into the baseball season, and he's on pace for a 9-ish win catcher season. So
Mhm.
enjoy it, guys. Like, just treasure it. And the fact I talked to Meg Rowley, the editor of Fangraphs, about this on my show. The fact that it happened right after they extended him. Like, if you want the Mariners to spend money, like, this is such a good outcome for all of us. It's like, we extended Cal Raleigh and he immediately became the best catcher in baseball. Look what happens when guys feel taken care of, secured, and
Yep.
comfortable in their environment. They
Yep.
get really, really good. So the timing is great. Cal is great. It's awesome to see his personality come out more and more. He seems like a genuinely like dry humor, hilarious human being. Seems like an all-around solid guy, as best as I can tell. So this is just a win-win. Like
Mhm.
the rest of the team we just talked about, not good. Cal Raleigh, hold him close, man. This is like you may very well not see a Mariner season this good ever again.
Yeah, it's been really awesome to see this from Cal. Had the pleasure of doing a little bit of a deep dive into him on a video I made during the off season about just kind of his career thus far and how he came to be. And yeah, it was really interesting to look at his Florida State stats and especially not even just the counting stats, but there was one I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was something where he played in one season, he played every single game at catcher, and it was like in the super regionals or something for the College World Series or whatever. He had a fever, he had a 102 fever, he felt terrible, and he still caught and like had a couple, hits that game or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just, I think it just lends to the kind of guy he is, that he is going to give you 100% every single time. He played the whole playoff run in 2022 was like with the broken thumb,
Yep.
in his catching hand. And he just seems like the perfect guy to keep around. And all, it's weird because when we were talking about extension stuff before the season, you're thinking a big three of Gilbert, Kirby, Cal. Who do you extend? A lot of the times people were putting Cal number 2 and Gilbert at 1, and even
Mm-hmm.
I was in that boat. Just part of it is I'm just a big Gilbert fan, so a little
Sure.
bit biased there. And it's interesting because when they announced the extension, I think some people were kind of like, huh, that's kind of surprising, almost like not
Yeah.
not even just the fact that the Mariners did it in the first place and we're like, wow, they spent some money, but also
Right.
just like the fact of a catcher and how beat up he gets specifically, it feels like, and just the wear and tear that catchers can get. Just kind of, I guess, cautious optimism that he's going to be good for a good
Mm-hmm.
chunk of that contract, and then immediately he does this, and it's just
Yes.
it's very cool, and I'm really happy for him. And it's been fun to see him on advertisements, especially that
Yes.
Alaska Airlines one.
It's very good.
I'm not going to say he's necessarily the best actor, but I love the line delivery specifically because
Mm-hmm.
it's just him just saying it like he normally would. There's like,
Yes.
it's really, really cool to see those. So, yeah, really awesome to see that. It's a little bittersweet because I did grow up on Buster Posey when I was a Giants fan growing up. So,
Sure.
if he does surpass Buster, that's gonna be a little bittersweet, but at the same time, like, it'll be cool to watch that because I wasn't conscious enough at that point of my life to be, taking a 9 plus
Right.
war season from a catcher.
It's incredible just to have the conversation. Just the
Yeah,
fact that we can talk about it is amazing. I mean, Buster was an amazing player, so
yeah,
that's a really cool thing. I do love. I agree with you on the commercials. I think he's very much accepted the Rowley persona at this
yeah,
point, and he's very good at being Cal Raleigh in public, and he knows what that
yeah,
expectation is, and he's just like, I'm going to hit my mark. I'm going to be Cal Raleigh for this, and everyone's going to
yeah,
love me. It's like, yep, that's exactly what we want. Thank
yeah.
you very much.
I know you can tell the point in the Alaska Airlines one where you can tell the gears are turning when he's saying his lines like, okay, I need to point this way
Yes.
and I need to point this way when I
Mhm.
deliver this line and all
But he
that.
does it.
Yeah, he does it, and hey, I'll take it. I don't need the most charismatic person in the world. I just need a guy who plays good hard ball and hits
Teammates freaking
dingers.
love him.
Yeah,
His teammates freaking love him too,
exactly.
man. Like he
Yeah,
is the heartbeat of that clubhouse, like the best
hmm
defensive catcher in baseball, probably. Like I mean, the stuff that counts, like, I mean, it's kind of a metaphor, but like, where does it count in the weight room? It's in your ass, and he's got it there. And
Yep.
like in as a personality and as a leader, he's got it where it counts in the same way.
Yep.
Like he's the big dumper in more than one way. So yeah,
Mhm.
I love the guy. I never want to, the milkshake ducking always looms with celebrities and people that I don't actually know as people, but from everything I can tell, he just seems like a winner. He seems like a
Yep.
good one. So I'm thrilled that he's here.
Yeah, I think it was ultimately a good choice by the Mariners to give him that
Yes.
extension because
I'm just
he,
shocked he took it. That was my
yeah,
thing.
me
I
too.
didn't know if he'd want to do it.
Yeah, but I think he knows who he is to this organization. He's the guy who is letting, rookies room with him when they get
Yep.
called up. And, he's just that kind of guy where I think ultimately it was a good guy to decide to kind of like plant your flag in, like, this is our cornerstone, basically,
Yep.
like one of two, and, him and Julio Rodriguez, I guess, at this point.
Pretty good place to start.
Yeah, so I'll take it. I'll take it. I'm really happy with what I've seen. Hopefully he keeps it up, and I think I feel like he can, and it's going to be exciting to watch. But to end this out here, we're going to do a little hypothetical fun one. So Nathan, let's say you're crowned the new Pobo tomorrow of the
Ooh.
Mariners. I want you to give us what are like the three moves you make immediately. Whether doesn't have to be roster, doesn't it, just
Uh,
organizationally anything, what are the first three things you do as the new Pobo before, other than putting your feet up on the desk and, you know,
that's a great question. I think that I will be the first to admit that should they choose to do that, that would be a disastrous hire. I just talked to you about how if they were to get rid of Jerry, I want them to have somebody better in mind. This would be a clear indication that they did not have that plan in mind. If they were to hire me, I would say as somebody who tends to be more broad systems focused and culture focused than detail oriented, and I think the real magic of a great executive is that you can be both,
yeah.
which is part of why only part of why I would be a terrible fit in this role. But I think the big thing that I would want to do is recognize if I'm following up Jerry Dipoto's era, is to come in and try to establish some universal goodwill in this region and in this media community, because I think that there's a lot of hostility. I don't know if it necessarily comes from the media, but it's between the Mariners and media right now, mostly based off of the 54% press conference. I
Mhm.
think we need to I would call a real honest to God media press conference, which they haven't really done with the leading executives since that 54% presser. Right? Last year, they kind of just did it from the dugout, like game 160 or something like that. I don't remember which day. And we're just kind of like, yep, here's the state of the game. And then Jerry
Yeah.
scuttled off to wherever it is that he hides these days. I think I would want to do that. I think I would want to establish a community, not a community, an openness in a way that where I'm telling people how it is in a way that doesn't make it seem like I think that they're dumb. Because I think Jerry really struggles conveying his message in a way that doesn't come across condescending and like
Mhm.
he's talking down to people. I don't know if that's how he actually feels. I don't know him, but I do know how when he talks to the media, how it makes me feel as a fan. It makes me feel like he thinks he's smarter than me. And that's very frustrating to be talked down. So I would want to change that culture. And I think the other thing that I would want to say is I would look right in the camera and I would point at it and I would be like, any season that the Seattle Mariners don't make the World Series and win it is a failure by our perspective. And we have not done our job to the best of our ability. And that's a sign that we need to continue to improve, because I think that that simple message would have gone so far with Jerry's administration in order to like assuage the fans' frustrations. Just a
Mhm.
sense of, I understand what you're thinking, what your experience is, an acceptance of what the Mariners' unique position in this sport is, which is different than taking all the responsibility for it. You don't have to come in here and say, I take on the mantle of 50 years of failure, but you come in here and say, you've all lived it. I understand it. And my job is to make that change, to make this World Series. And then honestly, I would want to completely overhaul whatever it is we're doing with offense, because whatever we're doing with offense has just not worked. Now, if they graduate a couple position guys between now and when Jerry gets fired, maybe those guys get to stick around a little bit more. But I think that full audit of the organization needs to go on top to front. And probably this is not a sexy thing to say that I'm going to do. I'm going to work as hard as I can, including giving big old fat raises and bonuses to whoever's been running the pitching operation in my organization. Because there are things about this organization that don't need to change. And that's very much one of them.
Yep.
So retain the pitching people as much as I possibly can. Take a long, hard audit at whatever's going on with offense from the top down philosophically, like who's in charge of talent identification, who's in charge of development, what it is that we're trying to achieve offensively. How do we even think that hitting works? I think there just needs to be a complete examination of that, and then working very hard to try to rebuild the relationship between the organization and the fan base, because I still think that there's something fundamentally broken there in a
Mhm.
way. And I think this is the saddest thing about Jerry. Unless the Mariners make the World Series and or win it, as long as he's here, I think there's going to be something broken between this organization and the fans. Just after that 54 press conference, I just don't think that it's ever going to mend. I know some people are cool, just like blowing it, but as a group, as a community, which is what I think Mariner fans should be and what we are, I don't think we can ever really move on as long as he's here. And I think whoever comes in next needs to put in a little bit of intentional effort to rebuild that trust between the organization and the fans.
Yep. Well, I like it. I like those answers. So, it would be nice to have someone other than just writing it on the whiteboard that you want to win the World Series in a little promotional video actually say it. So, you know, that would be really nice.
Right. Wouldn't that
So,
be great?
yeah, that would be pretty cool. Well, Nathan, I appreciate you for hopping on here to Mariners Rundown, and it was a really good talk. And today or tonight they start their 3-game stretch with the Cleveland Guardians at T-Mobile Park, and then go into, I believe, the Boston Red Sox is here for 3, and then I think for the next 31 days they're playing 29 games. So
Yes, sir.
it's either going to be a fun ride or the worst ride of all time. I'm the next month is going to be
Make or
interesting
break,
to say
man.
the least.
They're
Yeah,
right on they're right on the edge. It's going to be, if
yeah,
they play anything like they have for the past month,
it's going to
it's
be
going to be
tough.
very bad.
Yeah, it's gonna be pretty bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Nathan, any last words? And go ahead and tell the people where they can find your stuff.
Sure. Well, thanks so much for having me, Jake. It's always great to talk to you. If anybody's interested in more of what I do, I'm on KJR 93.3 FM locally on the Ian Furness show at 1:20 every Monday on Mollywop Monday with my buddy Ian, who I just mentioned, and Chris Crawford. If you want to read about what I think about the team, you can follow me or subscribe at thelightbat.substack.com. It's a twice weekly Mariners newsletter. It's totally free. If you want to contribute to it financially, I'm mostly just looking to kind of break even on things like hosting and podcast recording software and all that kind of stuff. And I do have a monthly podcast is also attached to it. I think next week we're going to try to have Ryan Divish come on the show and check in from Montana. So that should be fun. That's been a really fun project. Last thing that I just want to say is it's always really great to be on shows like this. And one of the things that I hope people hear when we have these conversations is I am aware that I have a reputation for negativity and kind of being the doomsday guy with the Seattle Mariners, but I hope it comes across how much I do actually genuinely care about this team, and really actually even more so care about the community of Mariner fans. And I think it's awesome that shows like yours and Locked On and so many other creators have kind of taken it, because my background is writing and blogging, and because I'm a dinosaur, that's what we did in the late aughts and most of the tens. So it's great to see guys like yourself and other people take the video medium, TikTok, YouTube, and all that stuff, and create ways that keep people connected to the game. It makes people excited about the Mariners, because even though they're this horrific curse that hangs over our heads, they're ours, and they bring us together, and we get to do all of these fun things like this. You get to go down to go watch Laz Montez have a loud bat.
Mm-hmm.
We get to experience some of the greatest things. We get to share them with ourselves and with each other and with our families. So yeah, thanks for having me on. Thanks for doing this show, man. It's awesome that you make such a positive contribution to the community.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate the kind words, and yeah, it's been really fun to do this podcast. Gives me something to do once a week as well, and to keep up with what's going on, while I can work on more creative things in the background as I have time. So, yeah, but I've been really enjoying the community and just how much it's boomed, and that feels like in the last few
Yes.
years. Just I've personally had people, a couple people say like, hey, I started this podcast or whatever, and like I had, one person say straight up that like my channel inspired them to make their own
So cool.
channel, and like super cool. Even though
Yeah.
I have the biggest imposter syndrome when it comes to my own content and whatever. So, which I'm sure every creative person has. They're just like, it's not really that good, but thanks, I guess, that
Yep.
type of thing. But yeah, it's really cool because everyone has like you were talking with Chris and the prospects, everyone has their own flavor and the way they do things. And it's been really cool to get people a little bit closer, because baseball ultimately at the end of the day I think is the best sport on earth, and want to share that with everyone regardless of losing, sweeping, or getting swept by the D-backs. And you know
The Geno Grand Slam was just karma. You just gotta
I
let it
we all
happen.
knew
You
it
just
was
let it
happening.
wash over you. It's
Yeah,
fine. It was
yeah,
now the ledger's a little bit more balanced. We don't have to do that anymore. It's not
yeah.
hanging over your head anymore.
He
You
got his
knew it was
payback.
gonna happen.
Yeah,
It had to happen.
yeah.
You just gotta let it go,
It
man.
was
It's
my
just that's
payback
just
for seeing Kirby get 12 Ks against them last year,
that's
at
right.
home. So,
That's right.
it is,
Yeah, both sides.
yeah, so I'll take it. But yeah, Nathan, it was a really good talk again. I appreciate you for coming on for the channel for the second time at this point, and hope to have you on in the future as well, because I'm sure there'll be plenty to talk about, especially this off season too. So it's going to be a fun
Jake,
one.
anytime, man. It's awesome to get a chance to talk to you. I really appreciate you having me on.
Yep. Thank you so much. Well, if you're watching this, once again, last reminder on YouTube, subscribe, like the show. Appreciate it. If you're on the audio platforms, same thing. Follow the show, 5-star review, all that great stuff. I'd appreciate it. That's going to be it for Mariners Rundown in this episode. I'll see you in the next one.